Nebuchadnezzar, the great king of Babylon, was one of the most powerful rulers of the ancient world. His empire stretched across vast territories, and his name was synonymous with wealth, conquest, and unmatched authority. Yet despite his greatness, Nebuchadnezzar's story is one of pride, humility, and the undeniable sovereignty of God. Nebuchadnezzar ascended to the throne of Babylon around 605 BC. He was known for his military prowess and architectural genius. Under his reign, Babylon flourished, and the city became a wonder of the ancient world, boasting the famous hanging gardens and massive walls that seemed impenetrable. However, amidst his conquests, Nebuchadnezzar encountered the God of Israel in an extraordinary way. This encounter began when he besieged Jerusalem and took many of the Israelites into captivity, including a young man named Daniel and his three friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. These four men, though living in exile, remained faithful to their God, even in the heart of pagan Babylon. One night, Nebuchadnezzar was troubled by a vivid and mysterious dream. He summoned his magicians, astrologers, and wise men to interpret it, but with an unusual demand. They had to tell him both the dream and its interpretation, or they would face death. None of his advisors could meet the king's impossible request, and Nebuchadnezzar, furious, ordered their execution. When Daniel heard of the decree, he requested time to seek the Lord. That night, God revealed the dream and its meaning to Daniel. With boldness, Daniel approached the king and described the dream. Nebuchadnezzar had seen a massive statue with a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet of mixed iron and clay. A stone, not cut by human hands, struck the statue, shattering it into pieces, while the stone grew into a mountain that filled the whole earth. Daniel explained that the statue represented a succession of kingdoms, starting with Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon, the head of gold. The stone symbolized God's eternal kingdom, which would ultimately destroy all earthly powers. Amazed, Nebuchadnezzar fell before Daniel and acknowledged the greatness of Daniel's God, though his heart remained proud. Despite acknowledging God, Nebuchadnezzar's pride soon led him to build a massive golden image and demand that all his subjects bow down and worship it. Anyone who refused would be thrown into a blazing furnace. Daniel's three friends, names Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, stood firm in their faith and refused to bow. When Nebuchadnezzar heard of their defiance, he was furious and ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual. The three men were bound and thrown into the fire. But instead of being consumed, they were seen walking unharmed in the flames, accompanied by a fourth figure, who appeared like a son of the gods. Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and called them out of the furnace. He declared that no god could save like their God, and decreed that anyone who spoke against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would be punished. Yet while Nebuchadnezzar recognized God's power, his heart was still far from true humility. Years later, Nebuchadnezzar had another dream, which once again troubled him. This time he saw a large flourishing tree that reached to the heavens, providing shelter and sustenance to all. Suddenly, a holy messenger ordered the tree to be cut down, leaving only its stump. The messenger declared that the tree represented a man who would be humbled and live like an animal until he acknowledged that the Most High God rules over the kingdoms of men. Once again, Daniel was called to interpret the dream. With great courage, Daniel explained that the tree symbolized Nebuchadnezzar himself. Because of his pride, the king would be driven from human society and live like a beast for 7 years until he recognized God's sovereignty. Daniel urged the king to repent and turn from his sins, but Nebuchadnezzar ignored the warning. A year later, as Nebuchadnezzar walked on the roof of his palace, admiring the glory of Babylon, he boasted, "Is not this the great Babylon I have built by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" Even as the words left his mouth, a voice from heaven declared that his kingdom was taken from him. Immediately, Nebuchadnezzar was struck with madness. He lived like an animal, eating grass, his hair growing like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. After 7 years, Nebuchadnezzar's sanity was restored, and his first act was to lift his eyes to heaven and praise the Most High God. He declared, "His dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth." Humbled and transformed, Nebuchadnezzar acknowledged God as the true ruler over all.